He was a cold-hearted millionaire until a car accident left him in her care. Now she's the only one. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Anna couldn't shake the thoughts of Grant Carter from her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him lying there in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines, but somehow still clinging to life. It had been days since the accident, and though his physical condition was slowly improving, Anna felt there was more to his story than just his injuries. She had heard of Grant Carter, of course. Everyone had. He was a name on the cover of business magazines, the billionaire CEO of Carter Enterprises. Yet, when she was with him in the hospital room, he wasn't a millionaire. He was just a man who needed someone to care for him. As the days passed, Anna's shifts became routine. She would check on Grant, adjust his IVs, and make sure he was comfortable. But something about him kept her coming back. She couldn't help but notice how his eyes would flutter open for a brief moment, as if he could feel her presence. Each time, he'd seem more aware, and she would speak to him, though she knew he couldn't respond. She would tell him about her day, the small victories of her life, how she would one day open her own art gallery. She didn't know why she felt the need to share these dreams with him. Maybe it was because he seemed so distant, so untouchable, yet there was a connection between them, something she couldn't explain. One evening, Anna was alone in his room as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the sterile walls. She adjusted the monitor beside his bed, glancing up to see Grant's eyes slightly open. Her breath caught in her throat. She had never seen him this awake before. "Grant?" she whispered, unsure if he could hear her. His eyes flickered again, and this time, they seemed to focus on her. His lips parted as if trying to speak, but no words came out. Anna quickly pressed the call button, and within moments, a nurse rushed in. They checked his vitals, confirming that his condition was improving steadily. It was the first real sign of recovery. Grant was waking up, slowly but surely. As Anna sat by his side that night, a quiet realization hit her. The man who had been nothing more than a figure in a magazine was now a real person, vulnerable and in need of help. She had spent so many years caring for people in need, but this was different. This wasn't just a job. It was a life she was holding in her hands. The next morning, as Anna arrived for her shift, she was surprised to find that Grant was more alert. He was no longer just staring into space, but was actually looking around, taking in his surroundings. His eyes landed on her, and for the first time, he spoke. "Who are you?" His voice was hoarse, and his words barely above a whisper, but to Anna, it was the sweetest sound she had ever heard. She smiled softly. "I'm Anna. I've been taking care of you." Grant frowned slightly, trying to process her words. "Where am I?" "You're in the hospital," Anna explained. "You had an accident, but you're recovering now." Grant closed his eyes briefly, trying to make sense of everything. "I remember the crash," he muttered. "But who are you really?" Anna paused. She didn't know what he meant, but there was something in his voice that made her feel like he wasn't just asking about her name. "I'm just a nurse," she replied, trying to keep her answer simple. "A caregiver." "No," Grant said softly, his eyes searching hers. "I mean you. Who are you?" Anna swallowed. She felt a strange, unexpected weight in his words. She knew who he was. The powerful CEO. The man who had everything. But right now he was asking about her. She didn't have the answers to give him. "Not yet. I'm just someone who cares," she finally said, her voice steady but soft. There was a long silence between them before Grant spoke again. "Thank you, Anna," he said, his voice still weak but filled with gratitude. "You've been the only one who hasn't given up on me." Anna felt a lump form in her throat. His words hit her harder than she expected. He didn't know her, not really. But in those few words, she felt seen. Not as a nurse, not as just a caretaker, but as a person who had made a difference in his life. From that moment on, Anna's visits became more than just routine. She found herself looking forward to seeing Grant every day, watching as he slowly regained his strength. And with each passing day, the bond between them deepened. What started as a simple duty, taking care of a patient, began to feel like something more. But as she sat by his side, She couldn't help but wonder. Would he ever see her as more than just the nurse? Would he ever look at her the way she had begun to look at him? And what would happen when he fully recovered, when he realized who he truly was? Would he remember her, the woman who cared for him when he had nothing left? Or would he walk away, as rich and distant as before? These questions lingered in Anna's mind, but she didn't have the answers. All she knew was that in this small hospital room, in this moment, she had made a difference in someone's life. And that was all that mattered. Grant's recovery was slow but steady. Each day, he grew more aware, more engaged with the world around him, but it wasn't just his physical body healing. Anna could see it in his eyes, the way he looked at her now, as though something had shifted. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. He had been a powerful man, a CEO with a reputation that echoed through boardrooms and across financial markets. But here, in the sterile hospital room, he was just a man who needed someone to care for him, and she had been that someone. The day finally came when Grant was ready to leave the hospital, his body healed enough that the doctors felt confident in releasing him. He was still weak, but there was no denying that his recovery had been nothing short of miraculous. Anna, though, couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness as she stood by his bedside that last morning. She had become attached to him more than she had ever expected. It was not just her professional duty anymore. She had come to care for him in a way that went beyond what was expected. As she helped him gather his things, she couldn't shake the thought that, once he left, she would never see him again. "You've been amazing," Grant said, his voice stronger than it had been, though still laced with gratitude. Anna turned to face him, her heart catching in her throat. "I was just doing my job," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, though she knew it was much more than that. He nodded, but there was something in his expression that made her pause. "I know," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity she hadn't seen before. "But it wasn't just your job. You saved my life." Anna looked down at her hands, unsure of how to respond. It felt too personal, too intimate for a simple hospital room. But before she could say anything, Grant spoke again, his voice gentle but firm. "I know you don't want to hear this, but I want to thank you in a way that feels right. I want to offer you something more than just a thank you." Her heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked, confused. Grant hesitated, then pulled out a business card from his jacket pocket. He handed it to her, his fingers brushing against hers. "This is my personal number," he said. "If you ever need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out. I mean it." Anna took the card, but the gesture confused her. She had no intention of accepting anything from him. She was just doing her job, just helping him get better. But the sincerity in his eyes made her wonder if there was more to it. "Thank you," she said softly, slipping the card into her pocket. "I really appreciate that." After a long pause, she added, "But you've already done more than enough for me." Grant didn't say anything for a moment, and then, almost as if he had made up his mind, he stood up from the bed, still a little unsteady on his feet. "I know it's not much, but there's something else I want to say." Anna looked at him, curious, but she didn't say anything. He took a deep breath, then smiled, the same confident smile that she had seen in pictures and on television. But this time, there was something softer about it, something more genuine. "I know who you are, Anna," he said quietly. Anna's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" she asked, startled. Grant met her gaze. "I've had my people look into you," he said, his voice steady but filled with something else. "Admiration, perhaps? You've been working hard, taking care of others your whole life. You've put everything into your job, your dreams, your family. But I think you deserve more than just a paycheck." Anna shook her head, unsure of where this was going. "I don't need anything from you, Grant. I've told you, I was just doing my job." But Grant stepped closer, his presence suddenly filling the room in a way she hadn't expected. "No," he said softly. "You don't need anything from me, but I want to give you something anyway. I want to give you a chance to live the life you've always dreamed of, a chance to open that gallery you've always talked about, a chance to do something for yourself for once." Anna took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. "You don't need to do this," she said, her voice shaky. "I don't need your charity." Grant's expression softened, and he reached out, gently placing his hand on hers. "It's not charity," he said firmly. "It's an opportunity, and I want to give it to you because I believe in you." The room seemed to hold its breath as Anna looked at him, unsure of what to say. But deep down, she knew she couldn't say no to him. This wasn't about charity. This was about him seeing something in her that no one else had. And for the first time in a long while, Anna felt like maybe, just maybe, her dreams weren't so impossible after all. As days passed, Anna found herself grappling with the opportunity Grant had offered her. At first, she had dismissed it as something she didn't need, something that belonged in a different world, far removed from her humble life. She had always been the one to give, to help others, but this time, the idea of someone offering her something in return, something meaningful, left her feeling conflicted. But there was no denying it. Grant's words had stayed with her, gnawing at her, pushing her to reconsider. He had seen something in her, something that she had long ago buried under the weight of responsibility and duty. For years, she had put her dreams aside to care for others, to make sure everyone around her was okay. But now, with the possibility of a new future in front of her, Anna couldn't help but wonder if it was finally time to think about her own happiness. The idea of opening an art gallery, something she had dreamed about for so long, felt like a distant fantasy, something that only the wealthy and privileged could achieve. But Grant's offer, his genuine belief in her, made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. Was it possible? Could she really take a step out of her comfort zone and pursue something she had always wanted? For the first time in years, Anna allowed herself to entertain the thought. She spent days weighing the pros and cons, her mind racing with what-ifs. What if she failed? What if she couldn't live up to Grant's expectations? What if it was all too much? And yet, the more she thought about it, the more the idea of being stuck in the same routine, taking care of others without ever taking care of herself, felt unbearable. She wanted more. She deserved more. That evening, as Anna sat in her small apartment, the weight of the decision heavy on her shoulders, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Grant. "Have you thought about what we talked about? I can make this happen, Anna. You just have to take the first step." Her heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just an offer anymore. It was a lifeline. A chance to finally take control of her own life, to do something that was hers, not tied to anyone else's needs or expectations. She stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She had been afraid for so long, afraid to chase her dreams, afraid to believe in herself. But now, with the opportunity in front of her, she had to make a choice. Anna took a deep breath and typed out her response. "I'm ready, Grant. Let's do this." The moment she hit send, a rush of emotions flooded over her. Relief, excitement, fear, all mingling together. She was scared, yes, but for the first time, she felt like she was in control. The next day, Grant called her. "I'm glad to hear that," he said, his voice warm with approval. "We'll get everything set up. You won't regret this, Anna. I promise." It wasn't just about the money or the business side of things anymore. It was about her believing in herself, about finally making her dreams a reality. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, paperwork, and decisions that Anna had never imagined she would be making. But with Grant by her side, guiding her, supporting her, she felt stronger than ever. He wasn't just a benefactor. He had become a mentor, a friend. As the gallery began to take shape, Anna found herself filled with a sense of pride that she hadn't felt in years. It was her dream, her vision, coming to life. And every step of the way, she knew that she couldn't have done it without Grant. But as the gallery neared completion, Anna found herself faced with a new challenge, one that she hadn't expected. Grant had been there for her from the very beginning, supporting her every step of the way. But now, she had to face the reality that she was standing on the precipice of something much bigger than she had ever imagined. She had never been the type of person to lean on others, especially not someone as powerful as Grant. But now, as the gallery prepared to open, Anna realized that she was going to have to face the truth. She had come to rely on him in ways she hadn't anticipated, and that terrified her. She wasn't sure if it was because she feared the idea of needing someone, or if it was because she was afraid of what might happen once her dream became a reality. Would she still be able to maintain control? Would she still be the same person who had built this all on her own? Or would she become someone else entirely? The questions swirled in her mind as she prepared for the opening night of the gallery. She had come so far, but now, at the edge of her dreams, she wasn't sure where she was headed. But as the night of the grand opening approached, Anna took a deep breath and decided that the only way forward was to trust herself. and the people who had believed in her. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long while, she was ready to find out what came next. The grand opening of the gallery was just around the corner, and Anna could feel the weight of everything she had worked for pressing down on her. The gallery was finally ready, a beautiful space that showcased her passion for art and her dedication to her dreams. As the day approached, her excitement was mixed with an overwhelming sense of nervousness. She had poured her heart and soul into this, but now, with the reality of it all sinking in, she couldn't help but feel the fear of what might come next. Would people show up? Would they appreciate her vision? Would they understand the work she had put into this? But more than anything, she wondered what role Grant would play now that she was standing on her own. He had been a constant presence in her life since that day in the hospital, offering support, encouragement, and guidance every step of the way. He had given her the opportunity to pursue her dreams, and for that, she was eternally grateful. But as the night of the opening drew closer, she realized just how much his presence in her life had changed her. The gallery was a reflection of her, of who she was becoming, someone who had the courage to follow her dreams. But could she stand on her own without him? The night of the grand opening arrived, and Anna was both excited and anxious. She walked into the gallery, taking in the beauty of the space once more. The walls were lined with stunning artwork, each piece a story, a part of her soul, carefully chosen to tell the story of who she was and what she believed in. The soft lighting highlighted the details of the paintings, and the hum of conversation filled the air as the guests began to trickle in. She looked around, her heart racing as she watched people admire her work. It was real now, everything she had dreamed of, and it was happening. As the evening wore on, Anna's nerves began to ease. She found herself talking to the guests, explaining her inspiration, the stories behind the pieces, and listening to their thoughts on her work. The night was a success. People were genuinely interested, excited by what she had created, and eager to see more. It was everything she had hoped for, and more. But there was one thing missing. One person, Grant. He hadn't shown up yet, and though she told herself it was fine, that she didn't need him to validate her success, she couldn't shake the feeling that his absence left a hole in the evening. As the night progressed, she found herself looking around the room, hoping to see him walk through the door. But time passed, and there was still no sign of him. Just as Anna was beginning to doubt herself, the door opened, and Grant walked in. He was dressed in a sharp suit, looking as confident and composed as ever. But as soon as his eyes met hers, a soft smile spread across his face, and she felt the familiar warmth wash over her. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said, walking up to her. "It's been a crazy day, but I wouldn't miss this for the world." Anna's heart skipped a beat. "You're here," she said, trying to keep the emotion out of her voice. "Of course I am," he replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'm so proud of you, Anna. This is incredible." His words meant more to her than she could express, and for the first time in a long time, she felt completely at peace. She had worked so hard for this moment, and now, here it was, everything she had ever dreamed of, and more. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you." Grant smiled, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "You did it all yourself, Anna. I just gave you the push you needed to believe in yourself." As the evening came to a close, Anna stood by the door, watching as the last of the guests made their way out. She felt a sense of fulfillment, a deep satisfaction that she had created something meaningful. But it wasn't just the gallery that gave her that feeling. It was everything she had learned along the way. The courage to take risks, to trust herself, and to let others help her when she needed it. And as she turned to Grant, who was still standing beside her, she realized that everything she had been afraid of, the fear of needing someone, the fear of losing herself, had faded away. She wasn't the same person who had walked into that hospital room all those weeks ago. She was stronger, more confident, and ready to take on whatever came next. Grant had been a part of her journey, but now, Anna knew that she was ready to walk her own path, one that she had built for herself, with her own hands, her own dreams, and her own heart. As weeks passed, Anna's life began to settle into a new rhythm. The gallery was thriving, drawing in a steady stream of visitors, many of whom were genuinely moved by the art she had curated. Her dream had become a reality, and each day felt like a reminder of just how far she had come. But even as she basked in the success of her newfound independence, There were moments when she couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. She had built something beautiful, but there was still a lingering question she couldn't shake. What about Grant? He had been there for her from the beginning, offering guidance and support when she didn't even know how to ask for it. He had given her the courage to pursue her dream, and for that, she would always be grateful. But now that her gallery was up and running, she wondered what role he would continue to play in her life. It wasn't that she didn't want him around. Quite the opposite, in fact. She enjoyed their conversations, the way he seemed to understand her in a way no one else did. But Anna had always been the kind of person to rely on herself, to take care of things on her own. She didn't want to be indebted to anyone, especially not someone like Grant, who had the world at his feet. Despite her growing feelings for him, Anna kept her distance, unsure of how to navigate the complex emotions that had developed between them. One evening, after a particularly busy day at the gallery, Anna sat alone in her office, the soft hum of the city outside her window the only sound in the room. She was going through some paperwork when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Grant. "Can we meet?" it read. "I need to talk to you about something important." Anna stared at the screen for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. She had grown accustomed to his presence in her life, but the thought of meeting him outside the gallery, outside the context of their professional relationship, made her nervous. She had told herself that she didn't need him, that she could handle everything on her own, but deep down, she knew that wasn't entirely true. There was a part of her that wanted to see him, wanted to understand where they stood. After a moment of hesitation, she typed her reply. "Sure, when and where?" Grant's response was quick. "I'll be at the cafe down the street in an hour. I'll be waiting." Anna set her phone down and took a deep breath. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew that whatever happened, it was time to face whatever had been lingering between them. When she arrived at the cafe, Grant was already sitting at a small table by the window, his back straight, his usual composed demeanor in place. As she approached, he looked up, his eyes softening when they met hers. "Hey," he said, standing up to greet her. "You look amazing." Anna smiled awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. "Thanks," she said, sitting down across from him. There was a moment of silence before Grant spoke again, his voice more serious than usual. "I've been thinking a lot about us, Anna," he said, his gaze steady. Anna's heart raced, but she didn't say anything, waiting for him to continue. "I know we've been focused on the gallery, on your dream, and I'm proud of you for everything you've accomplished," he said, his voice warm with admiration. "But I can't help but feel like we've been avoiding something that's been between us from the very beginning." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She had known this conversation was coming, but hearing it out loud was different. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Grant reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I want you to know something," he said softly, his voice low. "I've always believed in you, Anna, more than anyone else ever could, and I've come to realize that I don't just believe in your dream, I believe in us." Anna looked at him, her heart pounding. She had never expected this. She had never imagined that someone like Grant, with everything he had, could feel this way about her. "Grant," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to say." He smiled, his expression gentle. "You don't have to say anything," he said. "I just wanted you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. And if you want this, if you want us, I'm ready." Anna sat back, her mind racing. She had never thought about what it would be like to have someone beside her, someone who believed in her not just as a business partner, but as a person. She had spent so much of her life focusing on her independence, on standing alone, that the thought of sharing her life with someone else was both terrifying and exhilarating. As she looked at Grant, his eyes filled with sincerity and warmth, Anna realized something. She had built her dream, her gallery, on her own terms, but she didn't have to face the future alone. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to let someone else in. "I think I'm ready, Grant," she said softly, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I think I'm ready for us." The smile that spread across his face was everything she had hoped for. And in that moment, Anna knew that her dreams weren't just about the gallery anymore. They were about a future with someone who believed in her, who wanted to share in her journey. And that was something she had never imagined. But now, she couldn't wait to see where it would take them. The following weeks were a whirlwind of new beginnings and exciting challenges. Anna found herself growing not only as a businesswoman, but as a person, stepping into a life she had never dared to imagine before. Grant's presence in her life had become a stabilizing force, not just in her career, but in her heart. Their relationship had blossomed naturally, built on mutual respect and an understanding of the dreams and aspirations they both held dear. Together, they made a great team, both professionally and personally. Anna could no longer imagine life without him by her side. But as their bond deepened, a question lingered in the back of her mind. Would she be able to keep her independence? The woman who had built her gallery from the ground up, who had fought for every inch of success, now found herself in uncharted territory. With Grant's support, the gallery continued to thrive, attracting art lovers from all walks of life. It became not just a business for Anna, but a place of healing, a space where people could connect with their emotions through the artwork. But as the days went by, the boundaries between her work and her personal life began to blur. There was no denying the chemistry between her and Grant, but she was still wary of relying too heavily on him. She had spent so many years proving to herself that she could do everything on her own, and now, she found herself questioning if she was losing that part of herself in the process. One evening, as she sat in her office, going over some financials, Grant walked in, a soft smile on his face. He had come by to check in, as he often did. But this time, something about the way he looked at her made her pause. "Anna," he said, sitting down across from her. "I've been thinking." She raised an eyebrow, curious about what he had to say. "I know you've been working tirelessly to make this gallery a success, but I also see how much you're pushing yourself. I can't help but wonder if you're taking on too much." Anna frowned, her heart racing at the implication of his words. "I'm fine, Grant," she said, her voice steady but defensive. "I've got everything under control." Grant didn't look convinced. He leaned forward, his tone gentle but firm. "I know you're capable, Anna. I've seen it in everything you've done. But there's no shame in asking for help, in letting others be there for you, especially when you've already given so much of yourself to this." His words hit harder than she expected, stirring something deep inside of her. She had spent so much of her life fighting to prove her worth, to show that she didn't need anyone, that she could do it all. But now, with Grant in her life, she was beginning to realize that maybe there was no shame in leaning on someone, in accepting help. "I've been afraid," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "Afraid of losing myself, of needing someone too much." Grant reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You're not losing yourself, Anna," he said softly. "You're growing, evolving. And in this journey, it's okay to let others in. It's okay to be vulnerable." Anna's eyes filled with emotion, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel that vulnerability. Grant's words had always been a source of strength for her, but now they were something more. They were the key to unlocking a part of herself that she had long kept hidden. The conversation shifted as they talked about the future, about how they both saw their lives unfolding in the coming years. Anna realized that while she had always been focused on her dreams and her independence, the future didn't have to be a solitary journey. She could still be true to herself, still chase her passions, but with someone who supported her, who believed in her even when she doubted herself. It was a new way of thinking, one that she had never allowed herself to entertain before. As the weeks turned into months, Anna and Grant's relationship continued to deepen. They became partners in every sense of the word, navigating the ups and downs of life together. Anna continued to run the gallery, but now, she had Grant by her side, not as a figure in the background, but as an active part of her life, someone who brought out the best in her. The fears that had once held her back began to fade. She realized that true strength wasn't about doing everything on her own. It was about knowing when to ask for help, when to trust others, and when to allow yourself to be vulnerable. She wasn't just building a career anymore. She was building a life with someone who loved her for who she was, flaws and all. And that was more than she had ever hoped for. One evening, as they sat together in the gallery, surrounded by the art that had come to symbolize her journey, Anna looked at Grant and smiled. "I never imagined this," she said softly, "but I'm glad I took the leap." Grant smiled back, his eyes full of warmth. "You didn't take the leap alone, Anna, and you never have to again." In that moment, Anna realized that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in her life. She had learned to trust, to open herself up to love, and to embrace the support of those who cared for her. And with Grant by her side, She knew there was no limit to what they could achieve together. As the months passed, Anna's life began to feel more balanced than ever before. The gallery was flourishing, her hard work paying off with every new piece of art that found a home. She had become a recognized figure in the local art community, and her vision for the space was no longer just a dream. It was a thriving reality. But more importantly, Anna had discovered that building something beautiful was not just about the art. It was about the people she shared her life with, and she had come to realize that sharing her journey with Grant had made all the difference. Grant had always been there, supporting her in ways that went beyond business. He had been her confidant, her partner, and the person who believed in her even when she had trouble believing in herself. Together, they had faced challenges, both personal and professional, but each time, they came out stronger, more connected than before. Anna found herself falling deeper in love with him, not just because of the man he was on the outside, but because of the warmth, kindness, and understanding he showed her every single day. It wasn't about his wealth or success, but the way he made her feel seen, heard, and valued. One evening, after a particularly busy day at the gallery, Anna sat in her office, reflecting on how far she had come. She had achieved everything she had set out to do, and yet, there was a part of her that felt like something was still missing. Her thoughts drifted to Grant, who was at home, waiting for her. She had never imagined her life would lead her to this point, to a man who had transformed not just her career, but her whole perspective on love, trust, and what it meant to truly share a life with someone. But as much as she loved him, there was still a part of her that hesitated. Could she truly be the woman she wanted to be, balancing her career, her dreams, and her relationship? She was so used to doing everything on her own, but now, with Grant beside her, she realized that life didn't have to be a solitary journey. And that realization filled her with a mix of excitement and fear. That night, after finishing her work, she made her way home, her mind still racing. When she opened the door, Grant was waiting for her, a warm smile on his face. "How was your day?" he asked, his voice soft and inviting. Anna felt her heart swell. "Busy, but good," she replied, setting her things down. "I've been thinking a lot lately." Grant raised an eyebrow, walking toward her. "About what?" Anna paused, gathering her thoughts. "About everything. About how far I've come, about the gallery, about us," she hesitated, unsure how to say what was on her mind. Grant took her hand gently, his touch reassuring. "I know it hasn't always been easy for you to accept help," he said, his voice filled with understanding. "But you've done something incredible here, Anna. You've built this gallery from the ground up, and you've done it with the kind of strength and heart that most people can only dream of." Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "But I don't want to lose myself in all of this," she confessed. "I don't want to be just a businesswoman. I want to be the woman who has a life, who's loved, who can still pursue her dreams without losing herself." Grant smiled softly, pulling her into an embrace. "You're not losing yourself, Anna," he whispered. "You're growing. And I'm here, every step of the way. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Anna closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his embrace, the comfort of knowing that she didn't have to walk this path alone. For so long, she had been afraid of opening up, of letting someone else in. But with Grant, she realized that love wasn't about losing yourself. It was about finding someone who encouraged you to be the best version of yourself. The following weeks were filled with new beginnings. Anna and Grant took more time for themselves, balancing work with moments of relaxation and joy. The gallery continued to grow, but now, Anna felt a deeper sense of fulfillment, not just from her career, but from the love and support she shared with Grant. They started planning a future together, one that didn't just revolve around work or success, but about building a life of love, laughter, and shared dreams. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of their home, watching the sunset, Anna turned to Grant, a smile on her face. "I never thought I could have it all," she said softly. "But with you, I feel like I do." Grant reached out, taking her hand in his. "We have it all, Anna," he said, his voice filled with certainty. "And we're just getting started." As they sat there, hand in hand, Anna realized that she had everything she had ever dreamed of. The gallery, the love, the life she had always wanted. It was all within reach, and it was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. The journey had just begun, and for the first time in a long while, Anna felt truly at peace, knowing that whatever came next, she would face it with the person who believed in her, and with the strength and courage she had found within herself. As time passed, Anna and Grant continued to build their lives together, with the gallery thriving and their personal connection growing even stronger. Every day felt like a new chapter in their shared story, one filled with love, trust, and mutual respect. Anna had never imagined that her life would take such a beautiful turn. When she had first opened the gallery, it had been a dream, something she had worked toward for so long. But now, as she looked at the life she had built, with Grant by her side, she realized that the real reward wasn't just in her career success, but in the love and partnership they had developed. Grant was more than just the man who had helped her realize her dreams. He had become the person who supported her growth, not just as a businesswoman, but as a person. They had built something together that neither of them could have achieved alone. The gallery was a testament to their combined efforts, but so was their relationship. One evening, after a particularly successful show at the gallery, Grant suggested they take a short getaway, a break from their busy lives. Anna hesitated at first, thinking about all the work waiting for her back at the gallery. But then she realized that she needed this time. She needed to step away from the constant pressure, to simply enjoy life with Grant. The next morning, they boarded a plane to a quiet beach town, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. As they walked along the shoreline, the waves crashing at their feet, Anna couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over her. The sea breeze, the sound of the water, the simple beauty of the moment. It reminded her of how far she had come. This was the life she had fought for, the life she had built with her own hands, but also with the help of the people who believed in her, especially Grant. They spent the days exploring the town, laughing over shared meals, and talking about everything and nothing. It was a simple life, but it felt like exactly what they both needed. On the last night of their trip, as they sat on the balcony of their rented cottage, watching the sun set over the ocean, Grant turned to Anna. "You know, I've always admired your determination," he said, his voice soft but filled with admiration. "But what I admire even more is how you've allowed yourself to open up, to let me in, to share this journey with me." Anna looked at him, her heart full. "I didn't know I needed someone like you," she said quietly. "But now that I've had the chance to really see what we can build together, I realize that I was missing out on so much. You've brought out the best in me, Grant." Grant smiled, reaching for her hand. "We've brought out the best in each other, Anna," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "And I wouldn't change a thing." As they sat there, hand in hand, Anna realized that her journey had always been about more than just achieving success. It had been about finding the right person to share her life with, someone who would support her dreams and help her grow, just as she would do for them. With Grant by her side, she knew that the future held even greater possibilities. The gallery would continue to grow, and so would their love. But most importantly, Anna had come to understand that life wasn't just about the goals you achieved or the dreams you chased. It was about the people you shared your journey with, the connections you built, and the love that grew along the way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the ocean, Anna smiled. She had everything she needed, her dream, her gallery, and the love of the man who had stood by her every step of the way. The future was theirs to create, and she couldn't wait to see what it would bring. Together, they were unstoppable,